This is the 21st season of Bass Talk Live. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Strike King Lures, AFTCO, Pro Guide Batteries, Spro, Gamakatsu, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, Beatdown Outdoors, and Sunline.
BTL coming at you.
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we are going to talk about bass fishing on the day following the biggest day every single year in professional bass fishing. It is the Monday after the Bassmaster Classic, the second time that the Bassmaster Classic was held on Ray Roberts, the first being in 2021, and a little bit different story this time around. A lot of big fish hitting the scales, 25 plus pound limits throughout the tournament. A lot of guys also struggled in it, but in the end, it looked pretty early, like maybe a 20 something was going to take this title, and then Lee Livesey and Hunter Shryock, John Cox, heck, Hamner even made a run at that. But then in the end, Easton Fothergill wins the 2025 Bassmaster Classic with a total weight of 76 pounds, 15 ounces. He wins comfortably. It was like, I think, the fourth or fifth largest margin of victory in Bassmaster Classic history. He had 24-15 on day one. Backed that up with the biggest limit of the tournament, a 29 pound, 6 ounce limit. He actually puts the weights in pretty accurately on Bass Track. I remember back when Paul Mueller set that record, he had like a 32 or something pound bag on Guntersville. It kind of blew everyone away. No one was really expecting it, and then grinded out. He didn't have it until basically the last cast of the final day. A 5-fish limit for 22 pounds, 10 ounces on day three for a winning total, a classic record winning total, which I think the general consensus coming into this Bassmaster Classic on Ray Roberts was, if they could navigate the wind, which we'll talk about the conditions on Lake Ray Roberts that the anglers faced this past week, if they could navigate the wind, if they could get all 3 days of the tournament in, if they could find areas that were somewhat protected, that the classic record, the heaviest weight record, was definitely in jeopardy. And he knocked that out with about 10 casts left on the final day. And for a kid, he's an adult, he's 22 years old, but I mean, he's a kid. For a kid that has been remarkably stoic, if you watch him in any of his Bassmaster Open victories. And I've got a Easton Fothergill timeline. I think everyone kind of knows a little bits and pieces about Easton Fothergill, who's now competing in his rookie season on the Bassmaster Elite Series. But I kind of went through, drove home early from Fort Worth this morning, got in the studio and put a timeline together from August of 2023 through March 24th, 2025. And it is quite the timeline, something that guy will look back on the rest of his life over those year and a half time period and go, holy cow, that was wild. Or, I mean, who knows? And we got a couple guys in the sport now that might just keep it rolling and end up with KVD like careers. Not comparing them to that yet, obviously, but yeah, 76-15, catches an 8-pounder basically on the last cast. One of the cool Bass Live moments in history. And I've gone back and watched a lot. I'd watch a lot of the replay stuff as it went on. We'll dive into the expo. I was at the expo all 3 days, but they had really good coverage. There are areas you could watch that had sound on it. Actually, when you walked in, you could see the whole set that was set up there. It was cool on that final day. Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, was on set with Zona and Tommy Sanders, and then got to go in and hang out around the Bass Cat booth and stuff. So it was really cool to see that. But Easton Fothergill. All right, here's how we're going to do today's show. Monday, following the Classic, is a travel day for 99% of the people in the industry. So no guests today, but met a ton of great BTL listeners and viewers at the expo over the past 3 days. A lot of people came by to see Uncle Frank as well, who was signing autographed, one-of-a-kind speed ends in the FX Color Series at the booth. And then I was around a bunch of different booths throughout the week, talked to a lot of very educated listeners. So here's what we got. We've got the Sunline, the new sinking braid from Sunline. That's all the rage. This is the All Might, the pink line. It actually sinks. You can get your Nico rig, which is predominantly the Bassmaster Classic winning bait. Easton Fothergill's Nico rig, kind of the same bait that he used to catch that giant, like 9-pounder on Lake Eufaula, which originally qualified him for this Bassmaster Classic, and then a brand new 660-yard spool of Sunline shooter. And for any of our live not call-ins, but any of our live listeners who want to jump on the show and give their thoughts of the Classic, whether you went to the expo, whether you went to the weigh-ins, whether you watched the coverage online from somewhere in the country and weren't able to make it, whether you just have some thoughts or opinions, the link for today's show on StreamYard, just like we do with every single day with our regular guests, is in the YouTube description. And we're going to do a segment, and then we're going to come back with the listeners. I'm very interested to see what you guys think about this Classic on Ray Roberts. And then for all of the guys who get on the show, you have to have a good internet signal and enable your audio and video. It'll take you right to the StreamYard link. You can use your cell phone. If you're on like an Apple device, you have to go through Chrome to do it. But then I will see you in the queue backstage, and then just kind of hang tight, and I'll bring you guys in. And if it gets a little spicy, one button and you're out of there. So let's kick this thing off, though, just to kind of put things into perspective. The Bassmaster Classic is without a doubt still, in my opinion, the biggest tournament in bass fishing. And it's amazing to me, that Stanley Mitchell record. Trey McKinney looked like he was going to make a run at it, but the second youngest angler ever to do it, Easton, I've had him on the show before. I've talked to him a little bit through the opens. I don't know him very well personally. I know a lot of my friends that are up in Minnesota. Exceptionally proud. Minnesota has their first Bassmaster Classic angler. I think for the better part of a decade, we just assumed that would be Seth Feider. So I still expect Seth's going to get one before the end of his career. But let's go back. This kind of starts with, I'll throw in Wade Middleton in the collegiate bass and college bass, and FLW's college fishing, and what originally was the Carhartt Bassmaster College Series, now the Strike King, was starting with these youth and high school programs and graduating them up to the college level. And we saw the early signs of that with the Clint Davises and the Brandon Cards and a number of anglers who came through there who made it to the FLW Tour, which is now the MLF Invitationals and the Bassmaster Elite Series. But the first glimmer, the first glint was when, Andrew Upshaw qualified as the first collegiate angler to fish in the Bassmasters Classic. And then not that long after, Jordan Lee qualifies through Auburn on Gunnersville. I'm doing this all off the top of my head, so if this timeline is not 100% accurate, forgive me. And I remember he comes in, he had 2 8-pounders, and he finished in the top 10 in that event, but I think he only had 3 fish one day, and we went, holy cow, there's a chance a college angler could win this thing. And then the floodgates open, and I'd be interested to see out of the specifically the Elite Series and the Invitationals, the BPT has a lot more established anglers on it, especially now that it's down to 65. How many actually came through the college ranks? But Easton Fothergill was one of those anglers who came through the college ranks. He fished at one of the top 5 collegiate fishing colleges, University of Montevallo. And one of the things that Bassmaster did that I think is really cool is they created the Bassmaster Bracket Challenge. So, they have the national championship, and then if you're in the top 5, you qualified for the Bracket Challenge, and then they basically pare it down. It was all live streamed. It was on Kansas's premier fishery, Milford Lake in Kansas, and back on August 10th. So August 10th through 12th was the national championship on Pickwick. Tucker Smith won that. Tucker Smith now on the Elite Series, but down in 5th place. They qualified by like a pound. In 5th place was the team that included Easton Fothergill. So then they go to the bracket. So that's August 10th through 12th, 2020. This is the craziest timeline, guys, that I think I have ever heard. Remind you, at the time, you're talking about 19, 20-year-old Easton Fothergill. Really soft-spoken, obviously a very talented angler. A lot of eyes have been on him in the Minnesota area, specifically on that Leech Lake where there's, I heard, legend and lore of how many hours he spent out there graphing and how dominant he is on Leech in those surrounding areas. And this is as a teenager. So August 10th through 12th, they finished 5th in the national championship on pick, which qualifies them for the classic bracket. So they are now in like a path to the Bassmaster Classic, one of the 10. So it comes down to Tucker Smith. Oh, so before that, so that happens August 10th through 12th. August 16th, his mom reports that he starts having some headaches. Something does not seem right. They go in August 23rd, a week and a half after he finishes 5th in the national championship. He qualifies for this college bracket that's coming up in October. He has emergency surgery to remove a brain abscess. As a 20-year-old. It was a crazy story. He didn't know what his future was like. He didn't know if he'd ever be able to fish again. I remember they didn't know, there really wasn't any thought of him even being able to compete in the bracket. But he has emergency surgery on this brain abscess on August 23rd. Literally a month later, on September 22nd, it's announced that he's cleared to compete in the bracket challenge. On October 2nd, he wins the college bracket. This is 2 months after he qualified and a month after he had emergency surgery to remove a brain abscess. Did not know what his future had in hold. Beats Tucker Smith, who's now on the Elite Series. We know the caliber of angler Tucker Smith is, to win the college bracket. Now, once you win the college bracket, this sets a number of things into motion. Dynamic, Toyota, Bassmaster have done a really good job, and we've seen John Garrett, who caught the biggest bass in this Bassmaster Classic. He's been through that. Jordan Lee's been through it. Matt Lee went through it. Jacob Fouts went through it, where they pay for you to fish the opens. I don't know if they still do the boat and truck, but boat, truck, some expenses. Basically, they teach you how to be a pro at a very young age, and you get to fish the Bassmaster Open. So now Easton is in this kind of machine that is teaching him about this next step. So this is all in October of 2023. So that immediately qualified him for the Bassmaster Classic in 2024 on Grand Lake, but it also allowed him to fish all 9 of the Bassmaster Open EQs. And remember, before they went to this EQ qualification series, they just took the top 9 in the standings from the EQs, from all 9 EQs last year. So he kicks off the EQ season 3.5 months after winning the college bracket over Tucker Smith with a 7th place finish on Okeechobee in the EQs for a top 10 in the Opens. Then he finishes 16th in his first Bassmaster Classic as a 21-year-old on March 24th on Grand Lake of the Cherokees. Then he goes back to Oklahoma less than 3 months later, after 2 top 5 finishes in between that in college events and a 25th place finish in the Opens, and wins the Bassmaster Open EQ on Lake Eufaula, catching like one of the biggest fish that's ever been weighed in Eufaula on the end. So now he's going back to the Bassmaster Classic. He knows that in June. Then in August, he goes to his home water. And you want to talk about it, guy, like you wouldn't think there'd be much pressure on like an open guy to win. Dude, I made a joke in that tournament on the final day on stage. I said it was nice to be able to compete in the Eastern Fothergill Invitational. There were literally over 1,000 people packed at Leech Lake, and it was a 2-day tournament because they canceled one of the days. So these people stood in 85-degree weather, drinking beer and eating cheese curds for 4 hours to watch Easton Fothergill dominate this, one of their hometown, like a hometown hero at this point. He wins that open by over 7 pounds and opens that tournament with a 26-pound, 10-ounce bag of smallmouth on the first day, blowing away the field to win 2 of the 3 opens during that time stretch, become one of the only anglers to win 2 opens in a single season. And then a month and a half later, closes out the EQ season by winning, as a 21, 22-year-old, winning the Bassmaster Open EQ points to qualify for the 2025 Bassmaster Elite Series season. That season kicked off less than 3 months later than that in February with back-to-back tournaments in Florida where he kind of struggled. But I mean, if you look at this timeline from the time August 2023 to February of 2025, I mean, you're talking about a kid that doesn't know if he's going to live, doesn't know what his future is in fishing, is a college angler. Now he's won 2. He's fished in a Bassmaster Classic already. He's headed to the Elite Series. And so he starts his Elite Series career in February. And then yesterday sets the all-time classic weight record, 76 pounds, 15 ounces, wins the Bassmaster Classic by 8.5 pounds, becomes the second youngest angler ever to do it. And a lot of his peers, a lot of those anglers in the Classic, a lot of established professional anglers are pretty much in awe of what Easton Fothergill has done over the past year and a half. So there's little bits and pieces of this story all out. I know Pete Robbins has done a good job of putting some of the stuff together. A lot of good writers out there have kind of put the timeline together. But when I put that timeline together, I'm like, dude, this guy hasn't had a chance to breathe. And now he heads into the meat of the Elite Series season in his rookie year as a Bassmaster Classic champ. So big shout out to Easton Fothergill for one heck of a tournament. And that last catch, when he caught it, like he's very stoic. I mean, he's like, yeah, I got it. And you saw Trey McKinney, who had led the first day, had 15.5 the second day, was making that epic run. Like, he puts that 7-11 on the scale on the final day. And I don't know if it's just his mannerisms or something, but like when he waited, I was like, I don't know if he's telling the truth on that. Like, there's a part of me, like the way he's holding it like a baby, like upside down and stuff. I'm like, dude, that looks like a 9.5. Like, you never know exactly how it's going to be. You saw guys that said they had 15 pounds that came in with 20 plus on that. So the way the math worked out, even with that last second catch, Fothergill would have come in with 4 fish. He would have had, I think, a 7 or an 8 ounce victory, but it would have been a lot more dramatic. But I will trade the drama at the weigh-in for an iconic fish catch. And I think that's going to go down in Bassmaster Classic history as we look back on it. I mean, that is a last minute iconic fish catch from a guy who stuck to his guns, fishing a way that he has made 2 classics and the Elite Series since, the last 4 or 5 years, and then to stick with it, to land that fish on the spinning rod. Like, if you watch when he's fighting that fish and it's coming in, like, it's not open water. Like, this is a 22-year-old who has 4 fish in the box, 30 boats watching him. He knows he's live. He knows that the Classic hinges on this. And he's fighting this thing around timber on a spinning rod and is just as mellow as can be. Acts like he's done it for 30 years. That, to me, was incredibly impressive. All right, we got a ton to talk about today. We've got the Celebrity Pro-Am, the Media Day, the Classic Crawfish Boil, the Expo, the weigh-in, the length of the weigh-in, the parking, the coverage, the venue, the actual fishing, the travel to and from, all sorts of stuff. But like I said, if you want to be a part of BTL, you could jump on the show. This is kind of a little bit roulette. I don't know who we got on here. We're going to bring our first guest in today to get their initial thoughts on it. BTL listeners, this is Bob. Bob, can you hear me?
I can. Good morning.
Holy cow, you have like a setup that's better than 95% of the other podcasters that I have on the show.
Right? I'm telling you.
You got a little Mountain Dew sponsorship in the background there, everything.
I'm telling you, I do a Mountain Dew podcast. So.
Oh, you do? Fantastic. All right, where are you from?
Burleson, so South Fort Worth. So right here at the home of the 2025 Bassmaster Classic.
Perfect. All right. Thanks for jumping on BTL the day after Father's Go takes it home. Hopefully that wasn't too long of a timeline with Easton, but there's a lot of data points in there. And once I started, I kind of had to finish, and I was like, holy cow, he hasn't had a week off since he was in junior high.
Yeah, that's an amazing story for him. And I've one of my fishing buddies, his son is actually a freshman at Montevallo, and so since he started going there, I've really followed in on with the Montevallo fishing team and how good they are and the folks that they are pumping into the pros here recently and moving forward. I think there's going to be a few more that are jumping up into these ranks.
All right. What did you want to talk about this year's Classic?
I'm gonna spend some positivity. I enjoy the Classic. I really love it. I mean, I see a lot of comments on different things like, oh, this and that, but I enjoy it. I got to meet some of the All-American high school kids. Got to meet, obviously the pros and see all this stuff. But then, like the storylines of college guys that weighed in on the Classic stage from yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
It was a long way in, for sure. Right, we were there. I was there from 3:30 every day till I don't know what time we got done. Whatever. I've lost my voice yelling for everybody. But just took my kids down there on Saturday, and they got to catch some catfish in the pond. They got to.
I saw that. Those catfish were bitey too. Every time I walked past that, there were like 3 kids hooked up on about 1.5 pound channel cat.
Yes, it was fun. My daughter caught 4. My son caught 1, and he was getting kind of nervous because she was pulling them in left and right, and he was like, I gotta get.
They weren't in there when the 4 crochet boys were in there, were they? Because Cliff Crochet's kids, I saw it personally. They were like race horses, like in the gates when they opened it, and the next group of kids went in. All 4 of them, I think they caught every catfish in there 3 times.
Yes, that was fun, and I think for the family, I think it's an awesome family event. There's plenty for kids to do to keep them interested. And stuff to look at, touch, smell, taste. Some kids might taste it. I don't. But it's fun to take your kids there, and that's going to be the future of the sport. I know we got to grow the sport. But like those kids and seeing some of them kids smile when they get a high five from a pro or catch the fish like that or take their picture with whatever, like super duper fun for the family. I loved it.
We'll stay on that expo. So to me, I've been to every Bassmaster Classic Expo since 2008. For me, this Classic Expo, the way that it was set up, the way that it was in 2 rooms, you could say, hey, upstairs was a little bit further away from downstairs, but the fact that I think Cast King was giving away free rods, I think a lot of people made their way upstairs. Like I went up there and it was a mob scene. That's where you pretty much bought it. To me, it seemed, and as you attended this with your family, I'd like to get your take on it. The best flow to a Classic Expo. It didn't seem overly crowded, and there seemed like an ample number of professional anglers and legends, whether it be Roland Martin, Jimmy Houston, a Dean Rojas, a Justin Lucas, a Chris Lane, a Jason Christie, a Rick Clunn. And I saw so many people one-on-one interacting with their angling heroes in a setting that didn't seem cramped. It seemed like it had good flow, and it seemed like everyone had a bag of stuff that they'd bought. Like I give this a 10 out of 10 expo. I don't know if you went to the one in 2021 or how many other you've attended, but this seemed like a really well-run quality expo that seemed like it had fairly good attendance.
I don't know the numbers. I haven't seen it, but yes, I felt it was very well attended. I lived in Louisiana, and I drove over for the one in the last time it was here, 2021 or 22, and brought the family over for that. That was a lot of fun. And then we went this year, obviously. So two different things. I liked the location in 2021 because it was right next to the weigh-in, and I parked, and I was one-stop shop. Now, it was in June, and it was really hot, and a lot of that stuff wasn't in air conditioning, and that made it kind of miserable. But yes, this location was amazing. The only crowded area was where they were giving out Cast King free rods. I mean, the line for that looped around that whole room every time we walked in there. But other than that, it was free flowing. You got to meet people, talk to them one-on-one. I got to see you walking around filming. and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, definitely a 10 out of 10 on that location. And the back room, actually, the air conditioner was a little bit cooler in there, and it was the sound didn't bounce around back there. So it was kind of like a secluded little area.
Now the weigh-in, and I know Bass has, I don't want to use the word struggled. I'm sure they have long meetings about how to do the Bassmaster Classic weigh-in, because you have title sponsors, you have supporting sponsors, you have, hey, we want to go around the arena and throw out these baits and shoot these t-shirts, and we want to make sure we recognize the kayak anglers and the high school anglers and the college fishermen, and set the when all that happens, and then you take into account that you've got anglers that are you're from the area. When I say my girlfriend Courtney lives in Fort Worth, like a Friday during rush hour, that drive from Ray Roberts to downtown Fort Worth is not what you would call smooth.
Traffic is always that way. We went up Friday morning. My cousin flew down Thursday from Wisconsin, walleye fisherman, first classic he's been to, loved it, said, man, it didn't seem like it was too busy. But we got in traffic getting up to the launch on Friday morning. I mean, I was like, man, we're going to be kind of late. We tried to leave early so we get there an hour, and we got there about 15 minutes before they took off, just because we got backed up. And that's Dallas Fort Worth. I mean, there's just traffic all the time everywhere.
But to me, and I wasn't in the arena, but I talked to people that were. I watched it. It did not seem as crowded, definitely, as it was in Tulsa last year, or in past classics. It seemed like there were a lot of empty seats, especially on days 1 and 2, and even on the final day.
Yes, and it kind of, as it went, I mean, it was a long way, and I think maybe some folks kind of were like, all right, it's time to go.
5.5 hours on the first day, but who's
yes. So those last few anglers that were coming through were kind of coming into a fairly empty arena, I would say. Everyone stayed around, I think, pretty good on Championship Sunday. I would like to say, how about KVD and Zona shooting t-shirts up? Yeah. But Zona's holding the deal over his shoulder and putting some on a rope at some folks up in the stands. I said, oh, man.
Yeah, that was fun. It also seemed, though, like a lot of hometown guys that were rooting for Lee Livesey. Like, I think what he's done for his career. Yeah, over those 2 wins at Fort. Really good trio of kind of locals, each with a very unique story that all kind of came to a head this past week.
Yes, definitely. It was fun.
All right, I want to ask you about the Mountain Dew podcast. How you actually do a Mountain Dew podcast?
Yes, I do. My best friend from high school, Phil, and I, we are the Mountain Duo, and we do.
How can we listen that? Give it a shout
on YouTube. It's on YouTube, the Mountain Duo. We got Instagram, and we're old guys, so we're older, so we don't have all the social medias going like we should maybe, but it was just been fun for us to review, because a lot of folks don't know that there are probably hundreds of flavors of Mountain Dew. They just know a couple of the flavors, and we kind of review them all as they come out, and just have fun with it,
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have to check that out. I know Jody White, who he covers all things. Well, he's won an Open on 1,000 Island. He was the one who was asking about. I think he might be a Mountain Dew fan. So anything else before I get you in? Also, that'll put you in. I got your name down here. Have you that's that new Sinking Braid. It's actually been out for a year or two, but
it was on my list to go try to find it. And then I got too busy, and I did not get to find it.
Yeah. It was at the, so
I don't know if they had it for sale or not, if they were just showing it off.
I think
there,
so. You'll like it though, but I'll put you in there. I've got everyone down. So yes. Who's on? And then 16 shooter, like in Texas where you are. I mean, you can wind a pink chatterbait around with that, Bob.
That's right. Yes, indeed.
So, anything else before I let you go?
No, man. Appreciate you and the coverage of the Classic and your show every morning. Get to learn all kinds of cool statistics and all the backstories. It's fun.
All right. Thanks. And check out the Mountain Duo show on YouTube with Bob. All right, there we go. We're going to take our first break of the show. When we come back, I do want to dive into the coverage. I see JoJo that's down here. I do not see video with JoJo. So if you are JoJo in the queue, log out and then log back in, but make sure you enable your video so we can see you. Also, if you want to be a part of the show, give your take. If you stayed at home and watched the Classic coverage, your thoughts on it, the link for the show is in the YouTube description. We got almost 500 people on live this morning on the morning after the Classic. So we'll just sit here and chat. And then if you are on, I'll randomly select one of you to get a spool of the 16-pound shooter and the 11-pound All Might. But it is a Monday morning on BTL with Easton Fothergill as your new Bassmaster Classic champ. We'll be back right after this. Pro Bass Adventures is reinventing Mexico bass fishing. With boats equipped with 12-inch Garmin units and LiveScope Plus, free loaner fishing rods, and no-cost airport transportation, Pro Bass Adventures is proudly putting you in the best position for success. Pro Bass Adventures has lodges on Lake Baccarat and Lake El Salto, Mexico's two best trophy largemouth bass lakes. Visit probassadventures.com or email probassadventures@gmail.com. The official Mexico fishing lodge of Bass Talk Live.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
All right, quick break. I see Cam in the queue down there. Before we get to it, one of the things that I went hard on last year was blowing up the Celebrity Pro-Am that Bassmaster did. I thought it was a really cool event that they needed to really highlight more. I think if you're trying to, I'm going to say, grow the brand, you're trying to get outside influences. Having Coach Prime Deion Sanders sitting on the set talking about bass fishing is a pretty dang good start. But I thought Bass did a really good job. And once again, I think they had it on Possum Kingdom. They had a lot more celebrities. I think there were 15 boats paired up with Elite Series anglers and Open Pros. You had a Stale Cracker paired up with the Cajun Baby. You had country artists, singers, baseball, football, comedians, all sorts of stuff on that. They did a really cool meet and greet down, I believe, at Cavender's in the Stockyards the night before that event. They had good social media and live coverage of that takeoff instead of just going out for an hour or two to where it was just kind of like, oh, we got them out there. It has actually felt like they were competing, like there was a competition. Polinick had like almost a 10-pounder. They had the official weigh-in on the stage there. A lot of those celebrities were around. They gave them the belt. I'm looking at photo galleries and videos of this stuff that went down. So I do want to give Bass a shout out for stepping up the Celebrity Pro-Am. There's Clint there. He said 22 boats, and it was on, did I say Possum Kingdom? It's an animal. It was on Eagle Mountain, but those guys, like it, the wind, the weather that went around this event, I know they were really nervous about doing that celebrity. I mean, you can't take these guys out in 6-footers when it's half the time it's their first time that they've ever been on a bass boat. That would go viral in all the wrong ways. And then also for the Classic, I talked to some guys. They had a contingency plan. There was a possibility in this, from what I've heard, that it could be a 2-day Classic with day one, but they did that official practice day. And some of the guys didn't, but that first day of practice, a week fully before, when it was 40 mile an hour sustained with gusts to 60, as the top 56 in the world that qualified for this thing. So I was really glad to see that Bass was able to get all 3 days in, and you can say that about the anglers, but you also have to take into account the cameramen, the photographers, the writers, the people that are covering this that are also out on the water with these guys. So glad Bass was able to work it out. All right, we got a couple more listeners in the queue. We'll bring Cam in. Cam, it looks like you are looks like you're at the job site today.
Yeah, I'm at work right now. Can you hear me?
I got you loud and clear. Thanks for jumping on BTO on a Monday following the Classic.
All right, I can't talk too long. I'm working on a truck, but I just wanted
All right, hit me. What do you got?
I think lots of people are having confusion with the final day weigh-ins, and they're confusing it with the all access that Ronnie was doing. Like the all access was on YouTube. People could watch that. People are complaining, oh, the announcers were talking over the fishermen. They were talking over. Well, no, you go on Bass Live and you can watch the whole thing.
That's a great point.
I see comments about that all the time, and it's just like, you guys are Bass fans. You're claiming to be Bass fans. Go where the fishing was. That's where the weigh-ins are all the time.
Yep. Did you enjoy watching the coverage over the 3 days, Cam?
So I ended up I'm up in Gussieville here in Canada.
Oh yeah.
And I was actually out ice fishing on Saturday. We got 3.5 feet of ice, driving the trucks all over the lake. And so I didn't watch Saturday, but all day Friday it was on in my years at work here, and Sunday I caught all afternoon and the weigh-ins. It got a little long for the kids at home, but I loved it. I love seeing it, and I don't know what the difference is between guys flipping a bush or guys flipping a bush watching a screen. To me, it looks the same. I'm looking at their back either way.
That's a fair point. And you had a lot to root there for. Obviously, Gussie, the Johnsons, and Cooper. You had like a whole they had what, 4 Canadians in the field.
Easton's hometown is an hour and a half south of me.
Okay.
So he's from up here too.
All right. Canadian team gonna win the cup this year? The Jets gonna make a run?
I can't trust the Jets on nothing. They don't have Big Buff anymore.
Yeah. No, he's big bass fishing guy too. I met him a couple classics. So all right, I'll let you get back to work. I greatly appreciate it, Cam. I got you down. And a great point there on the coverage.
All right, have a good day.
All right, thanks. A little international flavor there on Bassmaster Classic. I saw Gussie after the second day out, and he had the cowboy hat on. A lot of guys. This was kind of like, it seemed like the tournament of haves and have-nots. You talked to the guys in practice. You talked to some of them after the first and second days, and there were just a couple of guys that they didn't think they missed anything. They just weren't able to get on anything. But then there were also guys that like a JT Tompkins. I talked to him. You could see some of the guys that really wanted to make a specific pattern work. In the little bit that I talked to Chris before, and Chris Zaldane, and then after the tournament, I think that weather played a massive role on it. We did the Opens Pros Pick'em with Todd Castledine, who has spent a lot of time on Ray Roberts, and he called that shallow bite really well. We saw what Hunter Shryock did flipping the timber. We saw Lee Livesey made a run at it super shallow, and you take those drone shots and those high up shots in that grass and that 2 to 4 foot of range with a bladed jig. And it was interesting just to see. It wasn't, there were definitely haves and have-nots in this tournament, but I don't think there was an angler who wasn't thrilled when he put that 5th bass in the boat, which is kind of all you can ask for when it comes down to it. All right, let's go to our next guest. I've known this guy forever. It is Matt Ellis. Matt, what's up, dude?
What's happening, Pangrek?
Good. You need to fire up your podcast again.
Well, if you can get the other half of the show convinced, we could probably do it, especially after this past weekend. We've got, some new stories to tell.
Yeah, well, I feel like that won't happen until after March Madness is definitely over. So probably a little hooked up on that.
Right. So David and I went fishing on Friday. We were getting ready for a tournament. So it was sort of a TOS, show off again. And then, of course, Tennessee and Kentucky are meeting up in the Sweet 16. Thursday.
Oh, yeah, that's Matt Ellis, the other half of the formerly known as the Outdoor Scoreboard podcast that was ran for a number of years. All right, what are your thoughts on the Classic, Matt?
I thought it was pretty good coverage. It seemed to me like it covered like most other classics, and the lives were pretty good. It's Cam just said, you're looking at the back of the guy's jersey. That's prime real estate for sponsors. I don't know if the pros charge more for the back or not, or ask for more, but it's pretty good coverage. I liked day 3 yesterday when Livesey went back to that pond. He kind of took a poche type approach.
Yeah.
Didn't quite go full poche across that little dam, but he got back there and made some long casts, caught a couple key fish.
I mean, you got guys flopping on the deck. You've got guys going, there's one, and taking 3 steps and swinging. But then you've got, McKinney and Fothergill. Dude, to me, I thought it was a really great mix of shallow power fishing and highly talented live scope fishing. I mean, you watch that first fish. So you watch Fothergill, who struggles that first morning for the first couple hours, right? And you're like, dude, it's a 22-year-old kid. We kind of saw what happened with Trey on the second day. He's got all these boats around him. You watch him get that jerk bait down to the top of that tree, and that 3.5, 4 pounder come out and start darting around on it. And you're watching him trying to figure out, how do I get this fish to commit? And then it finally commits. Like, dude, I'm in the expo and I'm literally stopped in the middle of a row with a backpack on. I'm supposed to be somewhere. And I'm like, before it opened, and I'm like, I was mesmerized by that. But I was also mesmerized when you saw Lee back there casting that thing as far as he possibly could and catching him. I don't think you could have. I don't understand the complaining with the scoping versus that. Like, I think this had everything you wanted in a classic. Hunter Shryock had a chance to win. Corey Johnson had a chance to win. John Cox had a chance to win. Easton had a chance to win. Trey had a chance to win. Hamner had it was a great mix of what a fishing tournament should be. I mean, no one complained when Cliff Pace soaked a jig on bluff walls on Grand Lake, 3.5 minutes a cast, and caught 4 on the final day. No one was saying, boy, we need to make sure. Like, if you want excitement, just go have all your classics where the only way you can win it is punching, throwing frogs on cheese, to me, in the spring classic, you're going to have slow techniques. And this was actually, I thought, a great representation of moving baits and slow baits.
Yeah. It's a slow time of year. They say it's a tough lake to fish. And I'm surprised they did so well after having all those windy days last week. It's, I can't imagine how it was practicing, trying to focus on that tournament and not sink your boat. So yeah, you're going to have slow periods in every tournament. The fish are not biting you look at the catch times, and they say there's like two major windows throughout the day where the fish are really biting for everybody across the lake. And that's where they get some good content. And then you've got some little stories in between to tell. So I thought it was pretty good. I'm kind of on the fence on the scoping issue. I think it's cool, but then again, there's some competitive things there. But overall, they do a good job covering that. When they can share the screen, they can share the actual unit, what the image the anglers are seeing. I think that kind of helps, other than just watching a guy, twitch his spinning rod.
And you take Easton's last second 8 pounder out of it, and you've got and Lee. I mean, dude, Lee started the classic scoping. Like, people, I think, have a tendency to forget that. He's just like, oh, we're just gonna go out here and make sure. And it's like the exact same thing. He started, and Hunter had the forward facing. So you take out that 8 pounder, and I mean, you've got a very competitive classic that is within a pound of 2 guys predominantly forward facing, 2 guys predominantly power fishing and relying on the grass. Matt, I'm to the point where some people are just going to bitch regardless.
It doesn't matter what it is. Politics, sports, fishing, there's always going to be something. I mean, it's been going on forever. So. You've been in this game for a while, in the industry and as a fan. How do they make the weigh-ins less than 5 hours long? How do they make the weigh-ins in the Bassmaster Classic, the 3 biggest days with the most eyeballs on it, to where you capture
the casual fan who goes, this is really cool, but you keep the diehard fan engaged without losing interest for the duration or knowing what a drag it's going to be. And that's nothing against you. I said as a fence straddler. Yeah, I'm a fence straddler. You guys, I don't know what it takes to go into that. You guys don't know what it takes to be Dave Mercer with an earpiece in, who's got someone saying, hey, our next boat is 7 minutes out and we already ran through all of our previews and you've got to kill this time and you've got to talk about this stuff. And then you have to bring that next guy up because it's the biggest moment of his life in his first classic and have his stats in his head and make him feel like he's the number one special thing and hit his cue and make sure he's the one coming through the arena. It's real easy to judge that in a live weigh-in. So I'm going on a rant here, Matt. It's really easy to judge that in a live weigh-in setting, but all of the pieces of getting those guys there, in and on, like I know adds to it, but there's got to be a happy medium where we can truncate these first couple days.
You know, the first classic I ever went to, Matt, just to show my age, well, it was 1994, kind of a high school graduation trip that we went on in Greensboro, North Carolina. And I don't recall how far High Point Lake is from the arena we weighed in at, but I don't remember those weigh-ins being that long. It was still an entertaining show. You know, we still had a little bit of coverage, video coverage, not throughout the day, but, you know, when they came in the afternoon, they show a little bit of what the angler did. But as long as these lakes are so far from where the venue is, and especially you get it to a town like Fort Worth with the logistics for traffic, getting 56 anglers off the lake, check their fish, get them there. Then you got traffic accidents in town. You got all other unpredictable things that happen. You know, Knoxville wasn't too bad because the venue was right there on the river.
And they're launching right there, and the expos within that, and you can walk down like next year, like that is the perfect storm, the perfect scenario where you have angler, expo, and takeoff all in the same 2 mile radius.
Right, but places like I know when they had it in Gunnersville, and where was it was on Lade Lake. That's a pretty good haul. You know, then they had Gunnersville. So they were going to wherever they're going for that way in. So there's a lot of logistical things that they just, you know, arenas and convention centers aren't built on every lake. So that's why they'll never have one on Kentucky Lake, because it's at least an hour and a half or two from the south end of Kentucky Lake to Nashville. So, it's just tough. So as far as that's concerned, like you said, Mercer is a good vamper. He finds a way to fill empty time where he can. But maybe they just need to find a way to get. I know you got to acknowledge your sponsors and keep the crowd engaged, and giving freebies is a good way to do things at the Classic. So maybe they cut down a little bit on that, tighten up their travel time and pacing on the anglers. But yeah, nobody should be sitting around. And I've been there. You and I've both been there in the seats or backstage watching the weigh-in. And you look at your watch and it's like 7:45 p.m. and you still got dinner reservations. You know, you got a family to feed for a lot of these people. And then you try to go to a restaurant and you can't get a seat and eat till 9 o'clock.
Yeah, it is. I did like the fact that Bass seemed to do a very good job of cutting key catches, key moments, key stretches, and throwing that out within minutes on their social media. So a guy like me who's walking around the expo, who's not able to sit in front of my smart TV or sit on my cell phone and watch the hours of live coverage, can check it intermittently throughout the day and get a feel for what's going on, get those key catches or the key misses or what's happening out there. I thought Bass did a good job of getting that information out.
I would like to do this, not just for the Classic, but for every event. Cut Bass Track off at noon. Maybe have a little bit of live coverage so people know what's going on, but leave it more of in doubt, because you kind of know this goes back to Ray Scott days. They're going to hold some of these guys with the big fish until the last. They'll be the first or the last to weigh in.
I get that, but I also get sometimes you're the UConn women's basketball team and the national championship is over in the first quarter, and that shows how dominant you are, and everyone knows you're going to win. Like I fence straddle.
Are you going to show up if you know the Bass Track shows there's a winner who's going to win by 8 or 9 pounds, and 3/4 of the day he's been in the lead, nobody's threatened him?
But you're also taking 8,000 to 10,000 people in an arena and taking that away from maybe 50 to 100,000 people who are watching it online. And we got that last minute catch with Fothergill to where if you were watching, the fact that Bass Track was on to the last minute was, oh my gosh, he's only got 4 and Trey might be a little bit light. Like it could be down to ounces. So when they're about to go off air and that fish catch happens, I think you get a little bit more pop at the weigh-in for that, but like that excitement can't be recreated watching a 22-year-old with an 8-pounder on a spinning rod in trees, knowing that if he lands this fish, he wins the Bassmaster Classic. I think that's a trade-off, Matt. Like I like to watch it. I'd like to watch those moments happen on the water and make Mercer's job a little bit tougher. And maybe it's not as exciting, but there's a lot of professional sports where the outcome isn't exciting. In Super Bowls, in World Series, blowouts happen.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. And there's always somebody that's going to show up and watch. And it is, there are a lot more people watching online at home than can attend. So it is good for them to kind of keep in touch on what's going on.
Now here, this is a thought. So Clyde, I saw Clyde at the expo. Here's a happy medium. Let's see what people think of this. And we got over 500 people on live this morning. What if you kept the live coverage going, but you did not show Bass Track? What if you watch these guys catching and you've got, Zona, who was great to see him back in the announcers, and Tommy, and they're out on the water and they're like, well, that's a limit, but Trey had those, and then they start would that create some to where now in a perfect world, you're still creating that drama for the weigh-in, but you're still able to watch those pivotal moments go down?
That would be good. Yeah. You can still see the action, but unless you're good, got your own spreadsheet at home, like our buddy Roger Dudra might, you're not keeping up with the Bass Track.
How am I grasping at straws on that? Like we're discussing something that went on and then working on a solution with it. I think that's a great solution to it. So what else you got, Matt?
The status quo. That's it, man. It's just want to hop on. I got a little window of opportunity here between.
Dude, it was great to hear from you, man.
Yeah, man. Take care.
All right. Thanks. There you go. Matt Ellis, like I said, he was half of the outdoor scoreboard. Scott said that the live coverage. Yeah, there is a lot of commercials that they've been running during Bass Live. I do like when they keep the window open to where you can still watch the anglers, but hear the advertisers. So speaking of commercials, we're going to run a couple short commercials and then we will be back. And like I said, if you want to get in and get your opinion on what you thought about the Classic, good, bad, indifferent, the StreamYard link is in the YouTube description to this show. You just have to have good internet connectivity. Just type your name in, access camera and audio. And then at the end of today's show, I'll pick someone to win a spool of the Sinking Braid, the Sunline All Might, which a lot of guys are using, especially in those windier conditions to get the line down. And that's 660 yards, never been opened, straight from Japan, spool of the FC shooter. So we will be back with more in our post-Classic breakdown show right after this.
This is Gamakatsu's new Nano Alpha line of hooks. If it looks familiar, that's because they are. It's the same shapes and sizes in the round bend and the EWG and in the new Horizon head that you know and love from Gamakatsu, but there are a couple new features with this Nano Alpha, which is this little green label that you see on the packaging. First off, 2 times faster hook penetration. That's because of the Nano Alpha smooth coating on it, and also it is 4 times more corrosion resistant. Check it out, Nano Alpha.
I've been using Sunline Shooter for the majority of my career. Millions of dollars made, lots of bass caught, and the gnarly stuff. If you need a abrasion resistant, tough fishing line for the really, really mean stuff, Sunline Shooter is for you.
Beatdown is efficient, rock solid.
100% American made.
This thing is super tough. I mean, this thing is not going anywhere.
I've ran the beat down double stack from Florida all the way up to New York. And the one thing that I know is when I get to my fishing destination, I never have to worry about issues with my graph mount.
Your options are endless with these mounts, but they're steady, they're solid. These are the most reliable mounts on the market, and you can't go wrong with the beat down.
When you're ready to hit the water, Denali Fishing has you covered. Regardless of your skill level, from beginner all the way up to tournament pro, Denali has rods, reels, and tungsten to get the job done. Check them out at denalifishing.com.
Hey guys, Brian Schmidt here with Spro. I'm going to talk to you about the confidence I have in the equipment I use. You know, I have a charter boat business back home in Maryland. We fish for saltwater fish, and I also fish the Bassmasters Elite Series. So I keep my lights on by fishing. I have to have a lot of confidence in the equipment I use. Spro has me covered from head to toe, saltwater, freshwater, everything in between. A lot of high-end quality product. Spro has you covered.
All right, welcome back, Post Classic Show. Like I said, if you want to jump on this BTL video wise, link is in the YouTube description. We'll go through a couple of the readable comments in the feedback that we have today. Post Classic, like, this is good though. I like you get fired up about it. You know, I like the passion. I like the passion for the sport. A lot of questions about Peter Miller jumping on Bass's coverage. I know he was like a part of like a halftime show in one of some of the events down in Florida. He's on, Bass to Billfish, does a lot of TV. He's been in the industry for 30 plus years. It's kind of, I think, his first foray into the bass fishing. I don't really have an educated opinion on his coverage because I didn't get a chance to sit down and just watch hours and hours and hours of it. I was watching snippets of it. One of the things, and yes, I was sponsored by the Deep Dive app on Bass Talk Live, but one of the things that I thought that did bring a different level to this was the ability to pull up the wind, the water clarity, that stuff with the Deep Dive app on the screen that they had outside there. I thought that added to it. And then, with Robbie with on the water coverage, but, a lot of the on the water coverage was also a little bit hampered this year. And you saw it particularly on the final day as the anglers, and this is one thing during the Open Pros Pick'em that Todd said. He said, hey, there's going to be fishy areas of Ray Roberts. There's a lot of great looking water. And then that great looking water was cut down drastically by the wind and the angler's ability to move about because of the wind, which took a lot of the offshore, the rock pile stuff, the offshore, the brush piles, that out of play, which kind of condensed it. But then you had anglers in contention that were on the inside stuff. I think Hackney was up shallow on inside stuff, obviously Lee. Then you had guys who were kind of in that timber tree stuff in the middle that were both scoping and flipping it, that were moving, but generally in the same area. And then you had guys that were on the outside that were scoping with jerk baits, with minnows, with Nico rigs. So what it created was, if you had a Ben Milliken in the middle that had 25, 30 boats that wanted to follow him, or a Lee Livesey out that, and then you had a Trey McKinney or a Fothergill or someone that was on the outside, you had anglers you had classic anglers in competition that were basically fishing in and amongst the spectators. And it's none of the spectators' fault on that. They were trying to stay, back and respectful on that. But, managing crowds on the water, that's something that Kevin Van Dam did masterfully over the course of his Bassmaster Classic run, which resulted in 4 wins. I remember, I want to say it was Gary Klein that I was talking to. It might have been. Yeah, it was Gary Klein. He remembers one. He thought he had a classic that he was going to win. It ended up being a middle of the pack deal, but it was back when the classics were in the summer. Had a really good first day. and he was throwing a pop bar up along break walls to where the break wall jutted down, you know, a little drop off right there, and he was catching them on top. He said he remembered the first couple spots on that second day when he had a bunch of boats that were following us. This is long before TV coverage. He stopped, and he stood up, and he made a cast, and then 40 boats stopped behind him, and that seawall was toasted right after that. So I say that to say, like, I know Robbie Floyd usually gets, you know, in the guy's boats, is gets closer to him, but he also had to kind of stay back a little bit further than normal. And also, you know, they had good camera coverage on it. I thought it was good service from what I've seen. A lot of these anglers did a really good job talking and mixing it up, you know, on camera in the biggest tournaments of their life. So I'll be interested to see what the numbers are from the coverage, from a fishery standpoint, from a dynamic standpoint, outside of the wind, which really kind of wreaked havoc, I think, on a lot of the spectator boats that were going to go out, and how the fishery was able to be fished. I thought it was a great classic venue. You know, when Hank Cherry won, it was a completely different time of the year. It was up shallow bushes. It was smoking hot. It was kind of a throwback with the summertime with the rescheduled classic. But it's not the same. Debbie, you've got a variety of different baits that played in this. You had tubes, a chatterbait, I think a buzz bait was in it, a Nico rig, minnows, a number of different jerk baits, a jig. And it's not, you know, when the top 10 lures come out, you're not going to just see the exact same thing over and over and over. Obviously, if you had to pick 2 or 3, I think the 3 biggest baits that played this week on Ray Roberts would be some sort of jerk bait, either a +1 or medium mid diving. A lot of guys that were picking, you know, Trey McKinney and Easton picking fish off of standing timber with the jerk bait, which we've got some standing timber lakes here in Oklahoma that you can catch a fish or 2 on a jerk bait on. And it is definitely a talent. It is definitely a skill. They make it look easy to get it down there and not get it caught in the tree and be able to jerk it below the tree and then above and get the fish's attention. You spend a lot of time hung, and it was really cool being able to see those screens and watch those fish interact with that. I thought it was awesome that Justin Hamner, in defense of his 2024 Bassmaster Classic title, came in with a top 10. Other, you know, notable anglers, Scott Martin with a top 20. So the unfinished family business continues as he looks to get back to the Bassmaster Classic next year at Knoxville and try to do that. You had a couple of Bass Nation anglers. I got to meet Jeremiah Kindy. He's the Indy, from. No, I didn't get to meet Jeremiah Kindy. Who did I meet? I met Jeremy Knapp from Indiana. He was super chill. He was super cool. He had a big fish there. He finished in the top 30. You had Connor Jacob, who's a Bass Nation qualifier. He finished in the top 20. Past classic champions, you had Justin Hamner that was in the top 10. You had Jordan Lee in the top 12. Milliken had a top 15. Tournament favorite Lee Livesey. Zaldane stuck to his guns. He finished top 30, but he was just shy of making the cut, as was Gussie, who finished in 29th. And then the guys that were at the bottom that really surprised me, if you guys follow BTL, Josh Butler's been on an incredible run for the last couple years. Angler of the Year over on the Invitationals a couple years ago, won an Open. Really great angler that I thought this kind of set up for. Had a really rough first day, threw up a goose egg, but I was surprised to see that. Blake Capps from Oklahoma. Also thought, I guess I thought a spinnerbait might play a little bit more. He had a rough go of it. Taku Itu finished in 52nd with Koya and Taco in the field. There was some talk behind the scenes, even amongst other classic anglers during practice, that traditional stuff was going to play, but there was a chance that like an outlier. So there's like Texas team, there's big team trail tournaments on it, right? You're talking crankbaits, Carolina rigs, flipping stuff, chatterbaits. And there were guys that were like, you know what? There's going to be some stuff that's put on these fish. And once you saw that the water clarity wasn't destroyed because of that wind, there was some thought that you might see a dice or a bluegill looking or a weird plastic, that was shake in front of these guys' faces that would catch them. Like, you can't just look at this and say it's a scope fest. Like, you look at, Taku, Logan Parks, Cody Huff, JT Tompkins, Kyle Patrick, Robert G, Coop Gallant, they all finished below 40. I mean, if this was just go out and scope them up, those are top 10 guys. And they weren't. They were actually towards the bottom. So overall, I thought it was a very intriguing classic. I'll give out some numbers here. So I'll give the Celebrity Pro-Am. I will give the Celebrity Pro-Am a 7 out of 10. And I give it a 7 out of 10 because I still think it could be even more streamlined next year. I think if you knew who in further in advance was fishing it, and you got some live cameras in those boats that was covered almost like the Classic. Like, I would love to have seen Stale Cracker and Cajun Baby with analysis from Mark Zona with a live, with live coverage. I love to see Coach Prime Dion actually get out there, jump in the boat and fish it. I would love to see, a dude who has never caught a 3 or 4 pounder outside of his element, where he's usually around 50,000 people that are screaming his name. And now all of a sudden he's got it on and it's on him, and he's feeling that adrenaline of catching a bass with something on the line for the first time live. Like, I would be all in on watching that. I say that as a fan of the sport. Maybe some of the purists, that doesn't interest them, but one of the things that I dabble in is the YouTube golf, right? So the PGA did this thing this year where they had, they call them creator classics. So they have guys from Good and Bob Does Sports and Foreplay and Grant Horvat and all of these guys who make their living not on tour. They're not professionals, but they golf. But then they have like a tournament before that starts. So they did it on TPC Sawgrass for the Players a couple weeks ago. I got on and watched that live strictly just for the entertainment factor. I mean, I'm like the actual target demographic for that casual golfer, enjoy golfing, don't do it nearly as much as I should. My clubs are 15 years old, but I follow it. I watch all that stuff. I still think there's a lot of meat on the bone, even though they did a lot better job than last year, which was the first year. Totally understandable with the Celebrity Pro-Am. I hope that's here to stay. I give Media Day and a 7 out of 10 audio for that, but it was short. It was sweet. Anglers were very accessible. I love how they do it at the Bass Pro Shops, where you can get in, you can get out. It's not a deal where you have to park and get downtown. The anglers were able to work on their stuff. It seemed like all the credentialed media was there working. It was a very functional media day. The expo, I give a 9 out of 10 for the expo. It was really, really well run. I know Elo, a bunch of the guys behind the stage had that, and I'm not getting paid to say this. If it sucked, I would say this sucks, because there's some stuff in here that sucks. The actual weigh-in. So there's also some other elements that we'll talk about. We might try to get someone from Fort Worth from the Sports Commission that on. I have some of those contacts. Is you had to get tickets to attend the weigh-in. Now, they were free tickets, but you couldn't just walk into the weigh-in, which was a drive from the expo. So you're already working with people that have been at the expo. Let's say you've got kids, they're tired, you've waited to get, Jimmy Houston's autograph and, have a crankbait signed by Frank Scalish. They're tired. Hey, we'll catch the weigh-in online. We'll watch it as we drive home. So I think you lost some from that. Then I think you lost some because you had to get tickets for it, which made it even more of a hassle, even though it was free. I understand why they did that. I would assume that would be because Fort Worth wants to be able to actualize the value of saying, okay, the people who went to the weigh-in, these are the demographic, this is where they're from, this is, are they out of towners, are they locals that are coming to this? And then also just the fact that if you've been to a couple of them, it's long. There's like nothing. It's a long weigh-in. It is the longest weigh-in of the year. Like a Bassmaster Open weigh-in, it's longer than a Bassmaster Open weigh-in with 250 anglers, because everybody talks. You have all these breaks. You have to get your sponsor stuff in. I'm not sure. I was talking about this with Mark when we started covering this, when Mark started covering it, back when he was going to weigh-ins in Soldier Field. So if there's a way to tighten that up, and then you're also dealing with a venue that is 45 minutes to an hour, very rarely is it close. So you have traffic. It is what it is, but I would love to see a 2-hour weigh-in from the time the lights come on and the t-shirt cannons are out and KVD's going around getting the crowd fired up. A 2-hour weigh-in would be absolutely ideal. I don't know how they're going to get that done in the future. I also think that Bass is a victim of their own success in the way that they do cover it on the water, and that you do know. So that final day, if it's easy to get there, I think you're still going to pack it. I think you're still going to pack the place. The fishing, we talked a lot about that. We're an hour and 10 minutes into today's show. I give the fishing an 8 out of 10. Like I said, we already ran through how it went. You've got a great Bassmaster Classic champ for the upcoming 2025 season that is well-liked among his peers and the public, with a lot of support back home, who came up through the ranks, who shows that the system does work, who's going to be here at the top for a very long time to come, does things the right way, handles his business, well-spoken, respectful, liked by both high school and college anglers, peers his age on the Elite Series, and veteran anglers. So I give that an 8 out of 10. And the travel, I also give I give a 10 out of 10. The travel, we went to Riata's on the final night, or Riata on the final night with Frank Scalish and Frankie and Trailer Rick, who's been on BTL before, had an amazing buffalo steak. We spent one night down at Second Rodeo and got, a cheesesteak. We had one night at Toro where we went and split. I mean, you walk downtown in the stockyards and you actually see the Longhorns walk down the stockyards. You can buy a pair of boots. You can hop in H3 and get a steak. You can get a cold beer if you want to. You can go look at it's just a cool vibe down there. I think Fort Worth did a really good job. Now, it was slam packed. I mean, they had NCAA stuff going on. There was a rodeo going on. There were a couple of sold out country concerts at Billy Bob's. Yeah, burning up that company card. It's not good when you are the company. But overall, I give that the weigh-in, some of the TV coverage. You can't ask for everything to be perfect, but in a world where a lot of people like to complain, I thought this was a really good classic, guys, and I'm being honest on it. I thought the expo was great. Like I said, easy to get around, great to meet so many of you, the listeners and viewers who were there. Can't tell you how much I appreciate it as someone who does this for a living. This is the cool thing. A lot of the I went over to Pro Bass Adventures. They were giving away a 4-day, 3-night trip to either Back Rack or El Salto. And we had a lot of BTL guys come up. You go up to Power Breaks that were upstairs. Yeah, a lot of BTL people came up and said that they wanted to see it from that. So appreciate that. And then we're working on shows for the rest of the week. It's going to be a little bit different. So I am fishing Crappie Fest on Saturday on Lake Fork. I have the boat newly wrapped, and I'll say this, it is a split wrap, which everyone has a wrap boat and stuff here, but I have some companies that have been with me for a long time. Very grateful for the remainder of the year. So that's on one half of the wrap. The other half of the wrap I got to wait 2 or 3 days because it hasn't that hasn't even been announced, but I'm super excited for that. So new wrap, got the power brakes on, going to go fish Crappie Fest on Lake Fork. It's like a big bass bash or the Oakley Big Bass Tour, except it's with a crappie. You weigh in your biggest crappie. So we're going to go on Lake Fork with the long rods, with the hair jigs, fish with Jared Miller, former Elite Series pro. Jared Miller's the guy who took his boat below the Alabama Dam in the Elite Series like 8-10 years ago, if you remember that, and was catching spotted bass, and then just ran it through the rocks on the way back, totally decimated the hull. So he knows Lake Fork. His family had a fishing cabin down there for a number of years. Plus he likes to crappie fish. So I said, hey, you want to jump in here and make sure that I don't lose the lower unit, and then we might catch a $15,000 crappie. So I'll have more information on that if you guys want to follow it. I think I'm gonna record that and put it out. I know I'll lose some guys who are bass, but I mean, it's fishing. It's the joy of fishing. It's the excitement. Yes, it's bass, but man, it's also multi-species. So I'm not gonna go full crappie yet. But I fished that event, then I pop the power brakes off, drive all night, and start practice for the third Division II Central Open on Norfolk. Here's what we're going to do. All three callers, Bob, who has a Mountain Dew podcast. I'm going to send all three, Bob, Cam, and Matt, a spool of the All Might. I'll actually go to I got to go to the post office today. That's why I was giving something away. And I'll also check in. There's a couple hats that I have to send out. So appreciate the BTL listeners. We'll work on getting some Bassmaster Classic guys on the show this week. We got the Open next week, and then we'll get geared up for Red Crest, where I'm sure people will bitch and moan about that too. But also, there's a lot of people who are positive about it. I heard a lot of positivity. A lot of guys were super excited about this classic. Yes, there is such a good thing as constructive criticism. I'm all for constructive criticism. I mean, I did a show with Mark Jeffries for 13 years. The guy lives for constructive criticism, sometimes just criticism. But I thought it was a good classic. I'm sticking to my guns on that. You can tell me I'm wrong, but I also didn't watch 10 hours of it live on TV. I was kind of in and out of it, picked up bits and pieces and was there. So my experience was different from yours. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll binge it. Maybe if they put the 6-hour, day one live out, I'll put it on tonight while I'm getting my crappie rods rigged up for Crappie Fest, and I'll try to relive that, because I don't doubt. I'm not saying that it wasn't that it couldn't have been improved. I just can't speak educatedly on that. So big shout out to all the interaction. Great feedback. I do like watching the instant feedback comments roll. Same time, same place tomorrow. Let's do it. We'll talk to everyone later. See ya.